name's Justin Flitter. I'm the chair of the New Zealand Tech Marketers Group and in association with New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. We're delighted to bring you today's webinar all about why and how to win awards this year. Thanks to Shannon Thomas from NZTE for rallying the troops and bringing us all together today. So thank you. David Downs is, as I mentioned,
I'm right here.
Is right there. David needs probably not too much of an introduction, but he's the CEO of NZ Story, on plenty of boards and chair of the Ice House, a judge for the High Tech Awards. Is that right? You are.
I don't judge it. I'm the chair of the trust, but certainly have a lot to do with the judging process. Yeah,
absolutely. And Phil Thompson, he's the co-founder and CEO of Aura, which is a crime intelligence software platform. Last year, Phil and Aura won American Chamber of Commerce Exporter of the Year, most innovative software solution at the High Tech Awards, the NZTE International Business Awards for Leveraging Investment for International Growth, and the EY Entrepreneur of the Year. So well done, Phil. That's an incredible program. And we also have Caroline Francis, who is also on the exec team of the New Zealand Tech Marketers Group, runs her own consultancy, Frankie's Consulting, and works with companies like Rokos, and a fantastic CMO, an award-winning CMO for your companies as well. So welcome, Caroline. Can't hear you though.
Thank you.
Hey. Awesome. So you can feel free to ask any questions in the chat. We'll try and drop in. This is a conversation. We have lots of really great questions and stories to share with people. So this year, there's a couple of really big awards that and awards programs that you need to be a part of, and hopefully today's session will inspire you to enter some of these awards. So the High Tech Awards, which some of you would have been to and been a part of, the New Zealand International Business Awards with NZTE, potentially Entrepreneur of the Year, and the New Zealand Marketing Awards, to name just a few. There are loads out there, all with plenty of different categories that you can go to. So first of all, why should we be entering awards? Why should award entry be a part of your business and marketing strategy this year? Phil, I'm going to start with you. When you guys start applying for your awards and deciding to go for it, why did you decide to do that?
Yeah, it's a good first question, and I think back when we first started, we didn't think enough about the why. Often it's like, oh, there's an awards thing, let's just enter it. But I think as we've matured, we've realized that you need to be really deliberate around, firstly, what awards you enter. And you've mentioned a couple of those different awards there, Justin, but even more broader, I mean, if you're heavy on product design, then actually there's specific design awards, local and international. There's the Best Workplace Awards. You can go on and on and on, right? But for us, we each year we looked at, well, actually what awards mean a lot to us, and how do we leverage it for that year. So 2 years ago we were in a high growth mode. So it's like, how do we look to attract and retain talent? So for that, we look at employee experience awards, and then things like High Tech Awards. For that, the last year we just raised capital, so we looked at things like the NZIBA Awards for leveraging capital. It starts to put you on the map for further investment as well. So a big part of it is just to figure out actually the why. A couple of years back, actually, we entered a design award because we market around how easy it is to use our product. So it's really great to then have a design award winning for that particular thing as well. So it's definitely horses for courses around what company you are, what stage you're at, and then what your goal is for the year. And then actually just choosing a couple of awards that you can go for that you think you've got a good opportunity to take out as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd add two more things to that. I think the process of going through an award entry really helps to align everybody to what it is about your business that makes you unique, whether that's your product or your business as a whole, or even some of your shining stars if you're going into some of those entrepreneurial awards. So I think, going through the effort of actually creating the award material really helps to get alignment on your USP, and it's content that you can reuse in the future too. So there's a massive benefit in that alignment. And then the other thing I'd add is that it gives you really solid proof that customers who have already purchased your solution or your product have bet the right horse on the right horse, but it also gives future prospects the assurity that they're doing the right thing and going with you. So there's a couple of other benefits there.
Jump in. And also, apologies that you can now see me. It's much better when you couldn't. I think also someone made the point to me the other day, it's about the best value zero marketing budget thing you can do. Awards, yes, they cost you time. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, but they don't cost much more than time. And compared to some of the other things you do, you get a lot of cut through, particularly if you're named as a finalist or if you're lucky enough to win, and or clearly serial winners of awards leverage the hell out of those for PR and that sort of thing. So from an efficiency point of view, it's a really smart move as well.
So we've kind of looked at celebrating with your customers, looking at your investor profile, thinking about your international profile, and all of it aligns back up to what's your strategy for the year. What are the aspects of your strategy that you want to showcase, celebrate, create news stories out of, and be recognized for, I guess, are really key things as a part of that. What does it mean to your customers to enter, to become a finalist, to win an award? Caroline, what do you think? What does it mean to the winners' customers?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned earlier, it gives them confidence that the purchase they've made or the faith they've put in you in purchasing your solution was the right one. And I guess they feel like leaders too, right? Because if you're the leader in a particular thing, then they're leaders too by that very nature. I'm sure Phil's got more to add.
Yeah, your win is their win, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
That's definitely, I think, what we found. And you don't have to win the award, even being a finalist or being mentioned as part of it is great, because particularly as an earlier stage company, there are people that have made a bet on you. You're not a proven product most of the time. They really do see it as their winning as well. It's not just congrats to you, but they should feel very part of your journey. They're the ones that the early evangelists that are going around talking about your product to people. They're then the proof points for them, going, hey, I told you about this product a year ago, I use it and it's amazing, and look, they've won an award, and I was part of that journey, I was one of their first customers. And we find that the whole way through. So that's, I think, it's making sure that if you do win an award or you're a finalist or whatnot, actually putting that out to your user community as well, and sharing that in those sort of comms. It's not just the public and the media and internally, it's actually your entire community, whatever that may be.
I also suggest that this is a bit more frivolous, a bit more trivial, but actually it's a bloody good night out. Like when we go to the high tech awards or other awards that I go to, IBAs and stuff like that, some companies bring their customers, and just it's even if they're not finalists, they'll come along and bring their customers, because it sort of shows that they're part of a cohort of success, that they're connected and to different parts of the industry. So even if you're not a finalist, bring customers along. It's a great night out.
Sure is. Right. So Caroline, can you tell us about one of your award stories, campaigns? How did you approach it, and what was the impact or the benefit back to the business?
Wow, okay, there's a lot in there. I'll be succinct. So at Rokos, t-shirt, we decided to enter the High Tech Awards. It was a considered strategy because our business strategy was acquisition. We wanted to be acquired by a global business, and we thought that by entering the High Tech Awards particularly, it would give us the backing we needed to, have proof in our solution, because actually we weren't commercial at the time. We didn't have any paying customers. So we entered the awards and we became finalists in the first year and took the feedback on. As finalists, we didn't win that year, took the feedback on, and then over the next 12 months decided to, put that feedback into action, and we went again for the award and we won, which was fantastic. And because of that, that award win, we were taken way more seriously by some of the people who were looking at us for acquisition. And then about 5 or 6 months later, we were acquired by Drone Deploy, which is now how Rokos is known. So it was an absolute win for our business. It was part of our considered strategy. As Phil was saying, you need to have a considered strategy as part of your awards play. So in terms of how we approached it, I would definitely say do not underestimate the time that it takes to put an entry together. You need to collaborate across the business. So we sat down with all the key stakeholders in the team, and what we did is really focus on what made us different. What makes us different to anybody else. And we're in a unique position because, working with robots, it's pretty nascent. There's not very many people in the world doing that. So we were able to find a niche. But then when we were articulating that, it was so important that we could really nail what made us different in simple language. So yeah, lots in there to, I guess, continue the conversation around.
And for you, Phil, thinking about that International Business Awards, with leveraging that investment for international growth, you had a very clear strategic kind of goal with that. Once you'd kind of figured out that was the one that you wanted to go for, how did you approach it? What did the team look like? How did you go about putting that together?
It's team is the right word, Justin, to use, I think. Again, when we're earlier on, much smaller team, I would often write them. And to Caroline's point, it takes a lot more time than you think. And often because we're small, it would be the last day. We really should enter that award. And it literally takes the entire day. If you're entering multiple categories, you think I can copy and paste stuff, but actually the questions are different, and it's not exactly what the judges want to see either. So be very conscious about that. Now the size that we are, we're about 100 people globally with operating around the world. So we have a small but very dedicated marketing team. They'll pull together an initial draft, and often they end up basing that on how we position the company externally, but also some of the really interesting stories that we hear out of our customers, and also our internal strategy, and bringing that together. The tip really there is to try and remove marketing speak as much as possible. And I think a great marketing team won't be too markety anyway, but it's those big buzzwords that I can only assume that the judges will gloss over. And actually, my thinking is also less is more. So bullet points, often we use bullet points to get the point across, because if you're in the judge's shoes, which I'm sure David can talk about, they're reading hundreds of applicants, and multiple pages. So the easier you can make it for them to often skim read and pull out some really nascent points from that is super important. But before it goes through to the final application, I'm working with our team to look over it and go, actually, do we really want to be sharing that information? But also, how do we make that more compelling? And also, how do you start to put in some breadcrumbs almost for getting through to the future of the next round, where it's in-person interviews? What are the things from that you can actually then expand on? Like, what are the great stories that you can tell off the back of what your application is? Because those is what the judge is going to be basing their questions on for you as well.
Completely agree. And that point you're making about sort of brevity, or there's a Goldilocks thing. You don't want to write, the word count is not a target, it's a limit. So don't feel you have to write the 5,000 words that they give you. And bullet points is fine. There's nothing wrong with some well articulated bullet points. But yeah, the point I think you also made there, Phil, was great, is the buzzword bingo. Like, as a judge of multiple awards and things, I'm scared S-less at the moment, because I think there's going to be a lot of award entries written with ChatGPT. We're going to have sorts of buzzword bingo. I just actually ran one up then while we were talking. I thought, write me an award entry and use lots of buzzwords, and it sounds very much like the sorts of award entries you sometimes read. Listen to this. Our company is utilizing cutting-edge technologies such as AI, big data analytics, and cloud computing to drive innovation and disrupt the market. We're a world leader in leveraging machine learning, etc., etc. It's not too far from what we see sometimes. So sometimes you just to say, we make software that does this, you know, or we make a robot that can walk through a factory, or whatever it might be. Fine, but be direct. Yeah, by the way, Pete, Pete, don't you dare use ChatGPT. We're going to have some sort of meta AI thing looking at entries to say, was this created by AI?
I think on a similar vein, when you're positioned with a whole bunch of questions, answer the question. You know, a lot of people, especially, you know, some marketers will use marketing speak, maybe not the great ones like you've got, Phil. But yeah, absolutely answer the question first and foremost. Bridge if you like, but absolutely provide an answer to the question.
Okay, so we're going to get into a little bit more around how do you go about preparing your award application, and then how do you leverage it, and how do you make the most of your entry, becoming a finalist, becoming a winner. But David, to you first, I don't know if you can give us any examples. What does a compelling story look like? You know, how are the judges looking for, what does a good application look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. And remember, if you put yourself in the context sometimes of a judge, they're sitting down with, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50 entries. I mean, I judge, I'm lucky to be one of the judges in New Zealand of the year, and we sometimes get 200 entries. So, you know, you've got a very limited period of their brain space, and if it doesn't grab them in the first sort of paragraph or two, then you're already a bit on the back foot. So for me, I always think that it should be written a bit like a newspaper article. Like I didn't do journalism at university, but you know, a good newspaper article says that really core headline, then it expands a little bit more, and then it starts to create a backstory, and then it, you know, so what's the thing you really want them to know? You know, our technology is fantastic because of this, or our product or solution solves this customer problem, or whatever, or why do we exist as a company, and then kind of start to flesh it out from there. So that in that vital first 30 seconds of a judge reading it, or anyone reading it, I mean, we're obsessing about this judging process. We should talk more about the other value of why you do these things, but in that first 30 or 40 seconds, you want to grab their attention and really make them curious and want to read more and be memorable. Okay. But Phil obviously does this, you know, so well. He's churning out these award-winning entries. Actually, you should just drop out of this whole software business, Phil, and write award entries. I mean, you're on a good thing.
Oh, well, you could just probably deploy ChatGPT with machine learning and automate that process.
I would say on that, and you know, last 12 months have been big for us and a lot of awards, but it's the whole overnight success, right? We've been around now for 10 years. We won the High Tech Award, most innovative software last year, but that was our 7th category finalist over the preceding years, right? So it's like it's a long journey, and don't be disappointed when you don't win. Like, we've entered lots of awards and not won lots of awards. We just had a really good year last year, but like it is always it is external validation, and like to David's point, they are skimming lots of applicants at the time. So also don't take it to heart if you don't get you know, an award or get a finalist position either. Just find the next one and learn and iterate from, if you do get feedback from the judges as well, for the next year.
I'm hearing that making awards as part of your strategy is probably not a one-year program. This is something that if you're going to make it a part of your business strategy, you're probably not going to win the first year, or you'd be bloody lucky if you do. And so learning and, you know, developing and almost getting on the radar and being a finalist or being nominated and being a part of it is probably part of the process to winning a year or two down the track as you continue to grow and build your story.
And reading previous people's nominations or the blurbs on them. I mean, we're in the process of launching this year's High Tech Awards. So we're going around the country at the moment, talking to groups and saying, nominations are now open, etc. And it was funny, last night in Auckland, we had 2 or 3 companies who came up to me and said, we're not going to enter this year because we're going to learn this year. Or we're going to enter this year, but we don't expect to win. We're going to learn from the people around us. We're going to watch what's happening, and then we'll into next year. And it's really interesting to have that sort of deliberate strategy, and it's sort of like Carolyn said earlier, fits in with their business growth strategy. We're not going to enter this year because we're not ready for the capital raise, but we are going to do a capital raise next year, and this would be an excellent thing for us to do as part of that. So it's that kind of thoughtfulness.
But even if you do go
Justin,
through that process, sorry.
That's right, you go. That's Warwick here. I'll come back just when you're ready.
No, you go, Warwick. Go ahead.
Thank you. I was just going to say that sometimes in my experience of being a marketing agency for Microsoft partners, a lot of the time the entries that people would put in would be very similar because they didn't really know how to differentiate themselves from other partners similar. Engaging an external agency isn't always common, but is sometimes worth it. For that first stage of entry development, we would normally charge $2,500 to get up and running and include that in a marketing plan usually for new startups that would see it as a way to get new business from including it in their web strategy, their demand gen strategy. Those winning awards would usually go into email signatures on all the brochures, and so they're a key part of that. The other thing is it helps elicit all of the right information from more people by having more people interviewed. And generally, the reason people came to us was nobody had the time to do it. And so, the management would say, yeah, we really want to be in, let's get someone external to come in and do the interviews and talk it up and things like that. So for anyone thinking it's too hard, that may be an option.
Yeah, great point. And I'd also say that having one person manage all the various opinions sometimes, but all the inputs is really important. And then having somebody external, whether that be, I don't know, your accountant or a shareholder or even a friend, just review it at the final draft stage is really important too, because as Justin and I know, when you stare at something for the millionth time, there's still stuff that you miss.
And just to add to that too, and good on you, Warwick, for marketing yourself and your services. Good on you. Always be selling. We learned that at Microsoft. The thing I would say is if you have engaged someone else, whether that's within your business or a third party, don't turn up to the in-person judging and not have read it. And unfortunately, this does happen. So the judges will go, "This is really interesting what you said here on page 3 about X, Y, Z." So make sure that you are up to speed on what your entry actually says.
Yeah, and I'd absolutely back that. And a couple of things to add to what you've said, David, is find out who the judges are and actually do a bit of research on who you're going to be turning up to.
Follow them home,
yes,
stalk them,
Stalk them, find out what they're reading, find out what they say on Twitter or LinkedIn, or maybe not Facebook, that might be a bit too stalkerish, but, find out what they care about, where they work, it's so that you can appeal to what's important to them as well. But also, for the people who are going to be in the room, if you're a finalist and you do have to front to judges, the people who you're sending along or will be turning up, practice with them. Make sure they've read the entry, of course, but also practice and throw some questions. And because it's actually a really high pressure environment, I'm sure Phil can attest to that, having done it 4 times last year. You're sitting in front of these, not intimidating, but it's an intimidating environment. These people who are throwing these questions at you that you just have to be on point to answer.
Do some practice runs, do some mocks, yes. Have some externals, come into the office while you're presenting the award and grill you on these types of things. And I think we've certainly done that a number of times, and it does help. So I want to get into how are we actually doing this? What is the nuts and bolts of actually going through and putting together an awards entry? Couple of things we've mentioned already. It does take time. It takes time and resource. And while, as David mentioned, it might not cost you anything extra in your budget, it is going to be resource from different people across your organization, across your business that needs to be involved with pulling all of those customer stories, your strategy, There might be some data and some reporting and some financial metrics that need to come in there. And don't leave it until the last minute. It takes time. So it's really good. Or a good suggestion might be to pull together your awards team. So who's going to be involved in curating that particular information and slicing and dicing that up so that everyone's working on pulling that together. So we don't underestimate how long it takes. David also mentioned, don't have to use up the word count. It's like, it's like the 100K speed limit, right?
Absolutely.
Not you don't have to hit it the whole time or get over it. So, being concise is really important. Caroline mentioned researching the judges so you know who you're speaking to. We've talked a little bit around, should you get an agency to help you with some of that? And in some cases that can be really useful, especially if you're, tight for time. So my next question is, what are some of the tactics that we could use to shorten the time it takes to apply for awards? What are some of the things like, Phil, now your team are pretty skilled at writing awards. No doubt there'll be many more that you'll apply for in the future. Do they now have a documented process? What are they doing to kind of shorten the production time for an awards entry?
It's probably a bit of a yes and a no answer there, Justin, because firstly, your business changes every year. So you don't want to be, you can't, or you wouldn't want to have the same information year on year. I think, looking back at prior entries from a couple of years ago, it's almost like you always shake your head and go, I can't believe we said that, or can't believe that's what we're doing and saying back then. So, your strategy changes, your understanding of your own company changes. There's definitely economies of scale if you are entering a couple of awards in the same year that you can, often copy and paste, the bio and things like that. But again, every awards will have different questions or things that they're looking for, and every category will have different things as well. So there's not really an easy answer of how to shorten it down massively, other than knowing your business well, being able to write well about your business succinctly, and then giving yourself enough time, really, because even last year's ones, sometimes it would come to me with a day to go, and even though it was all written, it would still take me 8 hours to go through, 2 different categories and make sure we got it right. And that's already having gone through a big process. So really don't underestimate it, but often there's not really short, other than ChatGPT, there's probably not many shortcuts. I don't think you can have this.
I think maybe a hack is just to make it really easy for everyone to collaborate. So create an offline version rather than just relying on the online entry form or whatever you're entering. Create something offline that's easy for everyone to collaborate in real time, so that you're not kind of waiting on the next person or the next person, and you can actually have people weighing in as you need them to.
David, is it worth investing in video as part of your entry? Do judges sit and watch little videos or links to a YouTube video you might add in there?
Sometimes. I don't know. I often do, but I also get frustrated by having lots and lots of stuff. Like some people put in a video and a link to their webpage and a PDF of some white paper that they wrote and blah 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 blah, and you don't get the time to read it all. It probably is worthwhile later in the process, like if you've got through to the finalists categories or whatever. But in that first round, you're going through as a judge and kind of just trying to triage who's in and who's out. It's probably not all that useful. I would hate to think that people are out there spending lots of money creating stuff, like it's not really that necessary. So yeah, I would say on the whole, you probably don't need it, but it can be a nice to have later in the process.
Yeah.
Just on that cost piece, Justin, for a second, and 100% it is low dollars required. Please be careful if you're getting emails saying, hey, you won an award, please give us $3,000 for us to do up a one pager on you. again, the more well-known you get, the more and more you get of these. And it's like, hey, you've been top 10 in APAC for this and that. And it's all pay to play and it's all BS. And yes, they have a website, but no one actually looks at it. So don't get sucked into paying $3,000 to, and we haven't, thankfully, but I know some companies that have unfortunately gone, hey, yeah, great, we've won an award and it's $3,000 to win it. So be very careful about that, because it shouldn't, like, I think some have, maybe $75 or $150 to enter just to make sure that people are serious about it. But it shouldn't cost you thousands.
On the flip side, if you do get an offer after the fact as a finalist to create a cool video about your business and your proposition, I'd totally go for that. I know with the High Tech Awards, their video partner provided a special offer, and we took that up as some really cheap marketing and have used it ad nauseum after the event. So on the flip side, that is an advantage of being a finalist, because you do get access to some pretty good marketing deals.
And we were talking about kind of reviewing the applications. I think it's a nice point to go to you, Shannon, around your NZTE focus customers and how should we be utilizing them to review feedback, give us suggestions. They might even remember some work that you've done, or a customer story or something that you haven't mentioned in there.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So I'm a NZTE customer manager, for those of you that don't know me. And yes, if you are in the focus portfolio, it is definitely worth checking who your customer manager is. And again, leave a bit of lead time, can't turn things on a dime, but if you give us a couple of days or a week's notice, we're a great kind of extra set of eyes that know the business relatively well and has probably worked with the business in various ways and forms over a couple of years, and may have some good pain points to speak to, or advantages to make sure that you're incorporating into the submission. And we work with a number of different companies, so we often kind of have a good feed on kind of how things are shaping up in the market and the economy at the moment, and could propose some other things you haven't thought of.
Awesome.
I think it's a really good point that Shannon's making there about, leaning into your kind of advisory network, and, NZT is a key one for many sort of exporting business, obviously, but, so it's Callaghan. You might have a great relationship with your accountant even, or your lawyer, or your whoever, strategy advisors. Like, they're all there to help you. And as Shannon said, having that third party view and that lens of, here's another phenomenon too, by the way, as someone who judges a lot, we New Zealanders are way too shy. We're way too, coy about talking what we're good at and putting ourselves forward. And awards are not the time to be shy. They're the time to be confident in your successes and abilities. You don't go out there and boast unnecessarily, or say things that are not true. But absolutely, you need to do it in a way that's kind of very confident. And getting your NZT customer manager, or whoever it might be, they'll kind of strip away some of that. You're a bit shy, fucking about it, whatever it might be, and they go, no, come on, this is great. You guys are doing great. Put it in there.
Exactly. David, how willing are judges to provide feedback to, especially companies who perhaps haven't made the finalists, or perhaps have become a finalist but haven't won this year? Because I imagine that getting that feedback is so important to help improve for the next entries, right?
Yeah. On the whole, most of the really good professional awards always make it a requirement for judges to give feedback. And the really good ones make it easy for them to do it as well, because it's bloody hard work. If you've read 50 entries, trying to write something useful for all of them is pretty difficult. I know in the IBA's International Business Awards, because I'm the convener of judges on that, we have someone from KPMG in the room when the judges are deliberating, and then they'll capture our comments and thoughts, and then they'll send it back to me as the sort of head judge, and I'll make sure, read it and go, oh yeah, that's good feedback. So willingness is always there. The judges like that, but it's actually quite hard to do. So good, as I say, giving them in a succinct way, that's useful as well. Not just like, we didn't like your thing, but it's more like, we were expecting to see more of this, or we think you could have spent a bit more time developing this idea, or that sort of thing. So I think, and it's very valuable. I think, as Phil said earlier, in multiple years or Carolyn said it too, you learn from what you've heard, not just for the purpose of making a better entry, because that's a nice to have, but it's actually for the purpose of learning a bit more about your business from some people usually who are pretty good at this sort of stuff. You know, the judges are usually picked because of their expertise in the industry or the vertical. So they've probably got good things to say.
Yeah, certainly wearing my judge at the New Zealand Marketing Awards hats for NZ Marketer of the Year and Young Marketer of the Year. Had candidates for both who wanted to get some feedback and understand kind of how they stacked up and what they, to get some really good constructive feedback, which was good. Phil, how important has gathering that feedback been to your team?
I mean, feedback's always important, regardless if you're talking about awards or anything else, right? And it's taking things to learn from. A lot of the time, the feedback helps you understand that you're so in depth in your own business, you take things for granted around the problem space or around what you actually do. And so often the feedback is like, we didn't quite understand this thing, or you should have dived more into this particular area. And so we use that from high tech a couple of years ago. We're a slightly more complex business around that. We work with retailers and police, and you could tell from the feedback that they really enjoyed the police, like what we're doing for the community story. So for last year's awards entry, we actually honed in on just that part of our product and what we do, and that made us the award application a lot clearer around, hey, we're only focused on this thing, and here's what we're doing. And it also meant that for the in-person interviews, we could almost exclude half or 3/4 of what our business is doing more generally, and going, hey, we just want to talk about this particular area, and here's some really interesting stories, and here's some outcomes. So that's, I think, the best feedback we've got, and it turned out well for us last year.
Yeah. Okay, Caroline, you've been awarded a finalist. You're now at the awards, and your name gets called out. Have you pre-written your acceptance speech?
Oh, I think putting a founder, CEO / both on stage with a whole speech written out is asking for disaster. Everybody's super amped up, of course. We've probably all had a few drinks by the time we get on stage. So prepping a few bullet points, the basic, thank you, what it means to us, congratulations to the other finalists, that's probably enough. Nobody wants a big diatribe about, their backstory. So
thank the sponsor. Always thank the sponsors.
And the sponsors, of course, the sponsors. Yes, thanks, David. Thank the sponsors. So yeah, I would just maybe prep a few key bullet points for the person who's going to speak, and just choose one person probably to represent the business. That would be my 5 cents.
Bill, did you have a few notes, or did you sit down at the hotel the night before and think a little bit more about it? What if?
I'm a little bit superstitious around not prepping a acceptance speech without winning the award, but I generally have a bit of a formula, which is a three main points. Yes, always the thank yous first, particularly to your team, who actually do all the hard mahi for you, and then I quite like to figure out if you can actually leave the audience with something, if it's an inspirational message, or it's an insight that they can take away and remember that. But you don't go too long, and always thank your team, or for particular awards, like when we won the IBAs for investment, we thanked our investors, obviously, things like that.
Okay, I got a question here from Grant, probably one for you, David. With the likes of the High Tech Awards, how much weighting is given to commercial success versus being groundbreaking, high tech innovation?
Yeah, it's a tricky, because as Karen said earlier, sometimes you're pre-commercial, or you're kind of early stage, or still in that product market fit, for some of the categories. I'd say there's sort of a table stakes though. Like, we were having this conversation last night actually at the High Tech Awards at the kickoff. Someone said, is this whole thing just a marketing thing? And no disrespect to the 30 of us on the call that are marketers, but the answer is no, it's not just a marketing thing. Marketing has a component, but it's got to be, you got to market something of substance. So the tech's got to be good, the company's got to be solid, you've got to show customers actually want your stuff, you know, even if it's only an early stage. So there's credence and credibility in the actual kind of content and the substance of it. But then also it's how you tell that story, you know, how you describe it in a way that others can understand it. So it's a bit of both.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, because I've been in the situation where we're trying to sell vaporware, and the judges who are on your particular category can see through BS a mile away. So you have to have validation, and you have to have proof that what you're pitching is a real thing and it's wanted and needed in the market. So whether that's paying customers or at least validation through some sort of user experience testing, you've got to be able to prove that it's real. At Rocost, we were early stage. We only had a very, very small amount of very small paying customers to validate the proposition, but we were able to prove that in speaking with a number of people, a number of customers in the market, that this was a requirement in the immediate future.
And numbers matter, like, you know, metrics really tell a story. I mean, don't drown them in metrics, but saying we have a very popular product, sure. If you can say, you know, 4,000 people have downloaded our product and our NPS is, you know, 50, it's powerful because you've got numbers and metrics.
And just doubling down on the very obvious point, but to enter, or at least to become a finalist in awards, you've actually got to have a good product or solution, and particularly again for the right award. I think as you grow as a company, then different awards categories get unlocked for you. You know, a lot of them based on revenue, for instance, as it for company awards as well. But you know, when we were entering the high tech early doors, you know, we'd only enter every 2 years for the innovative product one, because we thought, one, yes, there's a lot of time involved in doing it, but secondly, we thought that 2 years was a great time to actually show the evolution in the product as well, rather than every 12 or less than months. So it's like, again, a strategy around when you enter and how you enter and what awards you enter. And even again, looking at what other companies have entered those awards in the past will give you, you know, and benchmark yourself. Oh, right, actually, I know that company and they're about the same size and stage as us. Or, oh, wow, those companies, okay, I'm not in that league. I'm going to wait another year. Again, early on, we didn't realize how big and impressive the high tech awards actually was when we first entered it, and you know, we were very, very early stage and didn't get a look in it at all. And we went, oh, that's why. When you start seeing, you know, the push pays and everyone else actually winning the awards, like, okay, we're not at that level yet. Let's hold fire on the awards until we get some traction. You know, whether that's customer usage or revenue for that.
I would also say, though, be brave. Like David said, don't be shy. Just back your product, find your differentiator, get some really great content on paper that articulates why you're unique in a really succinct way, and, you know, back yourself, because you never know.
Okay, we've got a few minutes left. So you've been a finalist, or perhaps you've won. What are you doing next? Phil, do you have a press release pre-drafted for PR for people who...
He's superstitious. He told you that. He wouldn't have done that.
David, well, maybe this is one for Caroline. Should you have a media pack ready?
So I think the benefit of being a winner, you actually sometimes get provided with a bunch of this great content, but it also depends on your strategy. So for Rocost, we were global first, right? And global businesses didn't care if we'd won a New Zealand award, but investors did, employees did. So, you know, like Phil, you know, at early stage, we're trying to attract new talent. So it mattered a lot. So we leveraged LinkedIn, you know, some of the social tooling where we knew people would be hanging out. So again, I think just reflecting on your strategy as to why you've entered the award, and if you win, so what, is really important.
Yeah, and there's also, yeah, so it is finding the right channels, and, you know, generally the next morning we'll be putting something on LinkedIn, for instance, because that's where all of our customers and prospects hang out. You know, our marketing team will probably do up a targeted advert that might go to our prospects as well, and then it goes into things like the user community newsletters and the like. Funny-ish story. I mean, some awards that you'll get chosen to do their media for them. Like, you know, they might do an article in the paper about it that they've already got organized, and they need a quote from you. On the night that we won the Entrepreneur of the Year award, I think they announced it about 10:30 at night. We had someone from their media team come over and say, "Hey, great, congratulations. You need to be on the radio at 5 a.m. the next morning with Kate Hawkesby." So we're out to about 2 a.m. partying, and then had to wake up after 3 hours to do a very dusty interview on the radio. And, you know, obviously you go and do it. And there's a couple of things that come off the back of those things as well. So some of the awards will actually have a whole media program for you. But if, you know, you are targeting the public and consumers, then yes, like, get yourself into the paper and put it out there. If you're going enterprise, figure out how to get in front of your customers, and then celebrate with the team. You know, and again, something that founders, I think, aren't great at doing. You know, it's very much a cool, won the award, like, let's keep focusing on the business, let's move on to the next thing. But actually taking the time to celebrate, if it's the team lunch, or you know, now we're at the size, you know, you send a couple of people to the actual awards night. We've had awards nights at the office where we're watching the virtual live stream, you know, having dinner and drinks together and that sort of thing. So really involve your team in the during and the after as well.
Yeah, really, really important. It's really, really great.
And definitely have your social media team on standby that night.
Absolutely.
It's a funny story. We were at the High Tech Award thing last night, and Elementary was there, and Honey was, who's the COO, was saying that the year they won it last year, she was the social media person, because she, you know, they're a small company and, you know, they're double duty. But he said after they've won 3 awards that night. After the first one, it was all good, you know, Then she had a couple more drinks. Then they won another one. Then it was a bit more. And she said, "Big advice: don't keep tweeting." To go back and delete a few things, you know. So but good social media teams are worth their weight in gold, and, you know, they can really get the word out there pretty quickly for you.
And as Phil said, you know, as a finalist, you're actually standing next to some pretty amazing companies as other finalists. And, you know, we leveled up when we won our award, and, you know, through social media, you know, brought in the other finalists because, you know, we were so humbled, but also because we're standing next to these amazing businesses that we were now associated with. So, you know, that was another win for us.
For New Zealand companies aiming to go international or dominate other markets in Australia or the UK, is it better to focus on international awards or focus on New Zealand awards first and use that as a stepping stone as to build your profile and brand?
No, I'll jump in first. I think do the New Zealand thing first, because you practice, you learn how to do it. But also winning an award in New Zealand in many markets is seen as prestigious. I mean, we know, for example, in the International Business Awards and NZTE's awards, in certain parts of the world, particularly in the Asian markets, winning an award that the government is behind is a massive thing. You know, like, people, we see it, they slap it all over their socials, they put it on all their, it's like a credential for them. So, so yes, I think it's good for practice reasons, if nothing else. And B, it's, you know, in and of itself, it's got value. That's my opinion.
Yeah, if you're a New Zealand-based company, you're likely going to be employing or looking to employ people here, and that's one of the key drivers around winning awards, is that attraction and retention. So you want to do that, and then figure out, there are lots, you know, there's some amazing Kiwi companies that have won, you know, the customer experience awards, which are global, international, and that really plays into what their particular product or solution does. So it is finding the right awards, and some of them are international. Often you'll find that, you know, if you're entering a new market, then it's not harder, because there's often criteria on being a, you know, locally domiciled company. But, you know, we're this year we're entering things like best workplace for Denver, where we have an office there as well, and in Australia too. So finding again the awards that will help you in those particular areas is really useful.
Yeah, and as Phil said, it all comes down to your strategy. So again, it's got to be a considered part of your program of work, rather than just being something you think about on the day or the day before.
Absolutely. Any last wise words of wisdom and encouragement, David?
High Tech Awards are open now. Get your nominations and entries in till March. And I mean, yeah, do think about this. To have a chat, like, I'll go back to Shannon's point about talking to your advisors, talk to NZTE, get their help. If you're one of the customers there, about what awards they would help you with, because there are lots. Phil said it earlier, there is quite a few, and they might, people like external to you might know of things that might not jump to your mind straight away, but actually might be quite useful things to enter. So don't be shy. This is your chance to shine.
Absolutely. I would say just do it. There's some amazing benefits. Even if you don't place as a finalist, you get to align your message. You get to create a buzz within your culture, within your employees. If you're a finalist, you get to, attract new talent, because who doesn't want to work for a finalist or a winner? You get to prove that people are backing the right horse, your customers and your prospects. And you also have some great content you can leverage in the future. So just do it.
Yeah, I think for me, definitely those 2 points. And it's just, have a strategy and make that early. And at the beginning of the year, figure out what awards there are throughout the year that you want to enter and why. Put them in the calendar and make sure you have enough time for them. And then also don't forget, when you are a finalist, just the intensity of the interview process. You do have generally it's 20 odd minutes and 6 judges just peppering you with questions. So be well prepared and have some really good stories. Bring it to life. Like, again, applications are great for metrics, things like that. Stories make winners.
And
I'll just say one last thing. It's Warwick again, that one of the things people forget to do is go back to customers to engage in what they're doing with the software. So we'd always do the interviews of customers who would just open up so much about how valuable they found the software and what it had done for them. And those customer stories are often not told. So they really do support that application in a great big way. And you get to find out how much your customers love you as well.
Absolutely. Hey, look, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, David Downs, Caroline Francis, and Phil Thompson. I really appreciate all your time, and thank you to everyone who's joined us on this session today. I hope you found it hugely useful and encouraging, motivating to develop your award strategy for this and the next couple of years. If you're not a member of the New Zealand Tech Marketers Group, go along to the website techmarketers.co.nz to join up to be a part of more events like this. Thank you again to Shannon Thomas from NZTE for coordinating it. And if you have colleagues or others who wish to watch and play back this webinar later, it'll be up on the TMG website probably tomorrow. So thank you all very much, and
thanks, Justin.
Have a great rest of your week.
Cheers,
Thanks,
mate.
Justin.
Bye.
Good luck, everyone.
Thanks.